Righteo, I'm doing a reply video to a fellow Australian YouTuber, Righteo. I know he used to have an old video with his real name on there, but we don't need to go into that right now. I've been following this dude for quite a while, a few years now, probably 3 or so, and he's fairly on the money with a lot of things. I especially sort of clued onto him, and I'd like to thank him for opening my mind to the fact that China doesn't necessarily need to attack Taiwan if they want to achieve Taiwan to coming back into their grasp. And he mentioned about they're more likely to go into South Korea. Then as time went on, I've seen other geopolitical analysts and experts, and an ex-Australian, I'm not sure what rank old mate was, but was it Molan? Jim Molan? In one of his interviews, I heard him talking about as well, nearly the same strategy as what Righteo mentioned about. It makes no sense to attack South Taiwan when you have to cross all this water, knowing that Taiwan, Japan, Australia, America, potentially Philippines, they're all going to jump in and blue China around that South China Sea. China will get smashed. Well, everybody will get smashed. Everybody who's putting their troops on boats and flying planes over oceans, they're all going to get smashed and lose thousands of people and irreplaceable ships. So it makes no sense. And then, anyway, so that aside, that's what sort of went, yeah, this dude's onto something here. And I don't religiously watch him every single week, but I watch him every now and then when his notifications pop up. So this video that I'm replying to is, who's the enemy of the white men? And this is mainly for Australia. I'm going to do a response video for this. I've got to do I'm multitasking at the moment. I'm doing the washing, so I'm going to fill up the sink with the hot water, and then I'll get back with my thoughts while I'm doing the washing up. Okay, while the sink's filling with water, I'll start off with where Righteo's video first started. There's a young bloke gets up in front of some panel. I'm assuming it's an ABC program or something like that on the television, and there's the crowd asking the spineless enemy, which is our politicians, questions, and this young bloke gets up. He's a white fella. He's soft around the middle. You can tell that he says he's got 2 jobs, a 1-year-old baby, and they've just had a rent increase of $180 a week. And if it goes up again, he won't be able to afford it. He's working 2 jobs. Okay, and then old mate goes on to say, gives him a bit of a description, he's soft, he's weak, blah blah blah. I agree with all those things, but he's up there begging and sooking about his situation, and I agree with that. We can't, especially as white males, but any male, we can't expect things to be given to us. That's what the whole left does. The whole left, which is also our enemy. Actually, anybody who votes Labor and Liberal, in my opinion, is the enemy of Australia. Since I've been born, we've only had 2 governments, Labor or Liberal. It's kind of the same as in America, Liberal Democrats, and pretty much everywhere else across the world, a so-called conservative and a so-called libertarian Labor Union sort of party. Now, we've had those 2 governments in power since at least the mid-70s. They got rid of capital punishment. In Australia, they did a lot of things in 1973. They took they're showing us what they're doing. They took the Commonwealth of Australia off our banknotes. Lots of things happened, you know. Just prior to that, one of our prime ministers went missing. Our prime minister of that year was dismissed by the Governor General for who knows what, but apparently he was talking about kicking the Americans out of Pine Gap near Alice Springs. Australia was just pulled out of the Vietnam War. So there was a lot of dodgy things going on in the government. And getting back to the getting rid of capital punishment, I believe that was on purpose, because the future politicians knew what they were about to do. They knew that they were about to sell out Australia. They knew that they were going to hand over our sovereignty to overseas interests. And they pardoned themselves by getting rid of capital punishment, excusing their behaviour, excusing their treasonous behaviour by selling Australia out, destroying our manufacturing, bringing in destroying our defence force, destroying everything to do with bringing all of these workplace health and safety things to make it impossible to be able to compete with overseas when it comes to manufacturing. Bringing in, you know, how are we meant to compete with overseas when we have free trade agreements with China and other developing nations, yet our workers and our bosses and our companies even, they have to allow for sick days, 4 weeks a year holidays, another, 7 or 8 public holidays on top of our holidays, and 10 sick days a year, then stress days off, and, you know, whatever other days off people are going to have because of family or children are sick or family emergencies or whatever. Then they hammer us with environmental protection things, and the cost of electricity's always gone up. You know, it just goes on and on and on. And then you've got like Sid Crane spanners or whatever it may have been are competing with super cheap tools. You know, you can buy a spanner for $1 compared to the Australian made one. And that's just across the board. That was just a slight little analogy. You know, so getting back to Dave's video, this young bloke's whinging. Now, one thing to begin with, he's soft, he's big, he's soft, he's fat. He might be a nice guy, but he's got to harden the fuck up, okay? You got to lose weight, mate. You got to get healthy. Just by looking at you, I'm also assuming that your missus is probably not in great shape, and I'm also assuming that you're probably going to be feeding your kid pretty shit food too. So I don't know where you work and what you do, but all I can do is I'm not telling him what to do, but as males we should always be relatively strong, relatively fit, not too overweight. We've got to move quickly. We've got to be able to be the ones who jump in and protect our family, protect our loved ones, and protect everyday passerbyers in the street. That's our responsibility of being a man and being an Australian, or being from whatever country you are in the world. Okay. Then an old mate brings up, you know, we've been disarmed and things like that. Yes, that's true. It's even worse that our military has been disarmed. Our military's been disarmed. Our police have been disarmed in the fact, even though the police have got way more weapons than ever before, and the population has actually been disarmed. Back in the 90s and before, the citizens were actually armed heavier than the police. When I was young, the coppers were getting around with a single revolver, a baton or a torch, and a set of handcuffs. And, you know, had to make his judgment there and then what he's going to do. So, using verbal judo, using his mouth to de-escalate things, or then he's got some rudimentary tools to step up the threat level. So, but our police have been disarmed in the fact that our courts let the system down, and their hands are tied with how they deal with black or ethnic minorities, or not even minorities, but especially when it comes to young Aboriginal kids and Aboriginal offenders. You see, look at Townsville, look at especially Alice Springs. There's towns all over Northern Australia where there's young groups of Aboriginal kids, and I'm sure there's some little magpies thrown in amongst that group as well, that are just out of control. There's no respect for law, there's no respect for anything. They're educated and they know that they can't get in any trouble. There's no deterrence, there's no punishment. Okay, so the very first thing that we should have is a criminal system that actually punishes. There's all this bullshit about rehabilitation and corrective, what a load of shit. Okay, if you're a filthy bad scummy cunt, you deserve some filthy bad harsh punishment. We've got farmers out there who work in horrendously hot conditions, and that's just their day job. Myself, construction worker, I do heavy hard work every day of my life. I get paid reasonable money, but the cost of living and all of those things, I pay $700 a week rent where I am now. Other guys who live down the Gold Coast or in better areas are paying $950 for a standard house. Are you absolutely kidding me? We get taxed. I'm paying $800-900 a week in income tax, and then I'm taxed on every single thing I buy, from petrol to food, goods and services. I'm getting hammered everywhere. Okay, one way you can get yourself healthy and stop paying as much tax: stop eating fucking rubbish, start making your own food. Don't drink, don't smoke. If you smoke and you drink alcohol, you're just throwing money to the people who fucking hate you. That's the government. Okay, the government does absolutely hate us. They, Labor, Liberal, Greens, Nationals, they're all the big four parties. They hate us. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow the situation for us to be in where we are. We would have had submarines 10 years ago. Our military, instead of buying Gucci, Mercedes-Benz, G-Wagons, we'd have Toyota Hiluxes or whatever, So I'm going to pause it here, and I'll get back to I'll start watching some more of his video and then start making some more comments on the video. Okay, so the next little part, old mate's talking about, he's talking about the cost of living, the housing crisis that we've got, the price of rents and things like that, and the immigration that's just absolutely flooding us. Okay, our infrastructure can't keep up. Our roads are just totally ruined. Hospital waiting times is ridiculous, So, however, I don't think we can't blame and shouldn't target the immigrants that come here. Some of them deserve it. If they're an immigrant and they're a criminal, no holds barred, they should just be destroyed on the spot. I have zero feelings for those people at all. If you can't come here, if it's not in your heart to know that you've left a shithole and you've come to another place, and you're not going to make a good go of it and make a better life and become Australian, not try and change us, not try and dictate to us how we're going to live, and also don't come here and just bum off us. Yes, there may be handouts to give you and all these incentives, but I ask these people who immigrate here, have some self-pride. Have some self-pride and don't want to be one of these useless bums that just sits around. And if you are one of these bums that you do intend on coming here and just leeching off us, well, expect to be called names. Expect lots of bad shit to come your way from people who live here, because people are frustrated, and it's all by design as well. Okay, by Whitey fighting Blackie and vice versa, fighting the coffee dude and, you know, the coffee coloured fella. And it doesn't matter what colour and shit we are and where we come from. While we're squabbling and stealing and fighting amongst each other, those rich bastards that are screwing all of us over, they're laughing all the way to the bank, okay? Because that's what this immigration policy is designed to do. It's designed to get us divided, okay? Divide and conquer. That's what they're doing. That's the play script. So the best way to overcome that is do not play by their rules, okay? So make friends, talk to these people. I talk to them every day at work, and I try and influence them the best way possible. And majority of the ones that I work with, I think that I can get through to them on some level, and to be honest, a lot of them are totally fine, okay? So it starts with hearts and minds. When our military goes over to other countries and invades other countries, whether it be Vietnam, wherever, Afghanistan, wherever it is, you always hear about them talking about hearts and minds. Well, as good Australians, maybe that's what we should be doing to win over the immigrants. Encourage them to like our footy games, eat our food, dress like us, behave like us, don't act like animals from where you come from, don't go around stabbing people, have some pride about you, learn how to box, learn how to fight, and use these. If someone's giving you shit about being whatever colour you might be or whatever, punch the cunt in the face. You don't need to get a knife and fucking do all that sort of shit, because if you should be deported, you should either be killed or deported if you bring a shit culture here and you bring your fucking knife and shit crime gang culture here. You're not even worth living. You're just an oxygen thief. And as for the cost of living, we don't need to build more houses. We just need to stop immigration. We just need to stop mass immigration. Now, the simplest way to do that is, it's easy. We don't need to march on Parliament with guns and pitchforks and knives and torches, okay? Stop voting Labor, Liberal, Greens and Nationals. Vote in anybody apart from them. I'm going to say straight off the bat, why not One Nation? Think about it, break it down, say it slowly. One nation, one bunch of people. Doesn't matter where we all come from, if we all work together and build one strong nation, that's it, okay? So stop worrying and stop watching TV. Turn off TV, okay? Everything that you want to watch, news, events, entertainment, it's all available on social media. Stop watching TV, stop listening to the radio. Anything free to air is only to corrupt your mind and herd you like sheep, herd you like cattle, to live in a certain way, to think in a certain way, switch your mind off, okay? Bums down, heads down, bum up, okay? Start using your brain, start reading books, start looking for subjects on YouTube or whatever other system that you're on, and research the things that you want to research. Don't watch this fucking rubbish that they put on mainstream TV. It drives me insane every time I go to someone's house with the TV on and see these duck-faced sluts with Botox shit in their fucking lips and plastic surgery and fucking fake tits and all that sort of shit. Look at your surroundings. If you lie fucking with dogs, you're gonna get fleas, okay? And that's the same with the entertainment that you delight yourself with. If you're just lazy and just watch TV, sit back on the couch and eat your Maccas and crack a beer and smoke a durry and watch that fucking rubbish, watch rugby league till the cows come home, you're just going to turn into an unhealthy, fat, dumb sheep. Okay? So we have to stop voting Labor and Liberal especially. Stop voting Greens and Nationals. all they're doing is destroying our country. Okay, I can't say it enough. If you voted Labor and Liberal, Greens or Nationals, you're retarded. And yes, I am being harsh because people need to be slapped around. It's constructive criticism. You need to have reevaluate yourself. Okay, so Citizens Party, Great Australian Party, A1, One Nation. I'm sure there's more. I just can't think of them all off the top of my head right now. Any of those independents, Social Democrat, not Social Democrats, Liberal Democrats, they were really good too. You know, any of your independents. That's one way to do it without guns and ammo. And then I suppose carrying over to that, even if we're disarmed and we're not allowed to have readily access to firearms and things like that, use your imagination. Start reading some books. Get online and see what you can be armed with, what you can arm yourself with, what you can... Anything, every single thing and anything is a weapon, okay? I'm not encouraging you to walk down the street with an ashtray or a bottle, but you can. Why not? You can always carry a bag with something heavy in the bottom of it. Could just be coins. And then bang! There you got a mace. You got a bludgeoning instrument. You just need to open your mind. Warfare and fighting is all about a good imagination. You know? So, but defending Australia, defending everything that we're talking about here, if every single person, every red-blooded white male, or doesn't matter, every male, sorry, if we were all preppers, if we all had a little bit of food, a little bit of water, a method of making heat for cooking and making coffees or whatever it is, a method of having lights, whether that's camping lights, battery lights, whatever it is, a torch, headlamps, things like that. We all have that stuff in our house. Have some books. You can read books even when the power's out and there's no internet. You can have books. Books are knowledge. They'll always be here. Okay? So have self-defense books, how to make improvised weapons books, things like that. Because we are going to need, there's going to be chaos, there's going to be conflict in my lifetime, and it could even be within the next 5 years or sooner. So it's better to be prepared. And then going back to the original fat young guy, get fit, get strong. If you're working 2 shit jobs, how about getting yourself in losing a bit of weight? It's easy. All you got to do is intermittent fasting, look online, eat 2 big meals a day, fast from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 eat from 6 in the evening, 5, 6 in the evening, fast all night, skip breakfast, and that's smoko time. That's when you have a nice big meal, and then have another one as soon as you get home from work, then fast again. And you're going to lose weight, okay? Losing weight will make you healthier, make you fitter, be more active, you'll have more energy, and try and get your missus to do it and start feeding your kids properly, okay? If we're strong and we're fit, that means we can fight, okay? And if we come together, if we can unify ourselves and become a united country, and we've all got each other's backs, that's when things start to snowball. If we all start voting as one. I know lots of people will say voting doesn't matter, but to me it's still just a tool, like a gun, like a knife, like a spanner or a hammer. It's just another tool in our kit to use. And we should use that tool until it's proven it's absolutely hopeless. That's when we revert to other means. Okay. So when voting doesn't work anymore, before we pull out guns, pitchforks and knives and things like that, we can control the energy. We can control the water. We can control the fuel. Okay. Basically, all of our fuel comes from Singapore or Middle East. Okay. Our energy, most of it still comes, the base load still comes from coal. and it all travels through power lines. It only takes a little chain in a power line, bzzz, and that power stops. Okay, coal comes on train lines. Only needs a couple of vehicles parked here, there, everywhere. 100 vehicles in 100 different spots parked over the train line slows the coal down. Okay, same with the fuel. Blockade the refineries. You know, if that's what needs to be done. We don't need guns again. All we got to, if the police have no fuel, the military has no fuel, they can't come and arrest everybody. They can't get around. It's like playing any game, whether it's boxing, UFC, football, soccer, doesn't matter. You need to run your enemy around. You run them around, you tire them out, you make them think, because those government and agencies are trained to operate from a playbook. Don't play to that playbook. Okay? Instead of having big protests, unless it's a really big protest, if you can get 100,000, 10,000 to 100,000 people, that's a different story. But if you're just small little groups and you've only got groups of 20 to 100, maybe even 300, okay, the cops are going to be able to out-muscle you, outgun you, and they're going to have a lot of things put into place to control you and isolate cameras to pinpoint a couple of people, okay? So don't try and fight the police or the military head on, okay? You're not going to win there. They outgun us. And they're going to have the government and the courts backing them, so they're not going to face any punishment. It's only going to be us, okay, who are going to get singled out. So have little spot protests. You can have your little spot protests. You can do a roadblock here, a roadblock there, block a train line here, a train line there, etc., airport or whatever it happens to be. I'm just putting in ideas into your own head, and you just got to start thinking and acting as splinter cells. You shouldn't need anyone on a video to tell you how to do something. If you need to be told, that means that you haven't been doing your research as a man. Because as a man, we should all be warriors of our own, in our own right. And that means you need to know a little bit about history and look a little bit about guerrilla warfare. Because that's how, if Australia is ever going to defend ourselves, it's going to be with guerrilla warfare against a much larger adversary. Doesn't matter who it is. Pick any of the major superpowers in the world, pick any of them and go, that's who's going to come our way. This is how we're going to defend us. They're going to have the satellites. They're going to have the drones and the stealth bombers and the ballistic missiles and the robot soldiers, let alone tanks and armored vehicles and then human soldiers, etc., etc. Okay, so you've got to come up with your own game plan. And the best thing about it is we all can bring something to the table and we all think differently, so we can attack that enemy from different angles with different game plans. And as competitive males, that most of us are, if we're competitive with each other, we don't need to communicate, no, how do I do this and how do I do that? When you see and hear of this style of tactic, invent your own. Outdo that last person, copycat, or even outdo that attack. You know, there's so many ways to fight. You know, whether it's dishwashing detergent on the road, on a bend, to make cars come off, blinding people with torches or high spotlights or lasers. You know, there's so many things. Fire, wind, and water are the most powerful things that we've got to we have on this earth. Harnessing those things, knowing how to light a fire, how to stop a fire by using fire, knowing how fire works with the wind, they're all important. Smoke from bushfires can stop satellites from penetrating down, and observation like cameras and things like that. Heavy smoke can also stop planes from taking off and landing. You know, it can, apart from the actual physical kinetic damage that it can do. It can stop roads because people can't see, you know. So smoke and fire can be used. Trees can be cut down over roads, you know. Was it the US? Was it the US Washington? Was it George Washington, an aircraft carrier that came into Brisbane? I don't know, maybe in the 90s or early 2000s, and it can't ever come back to Brisbane because the jellyfish clogged up. All the jellyfish clogged up the water inlets, which were raising the temperature of the reactor, and it couldn't cool down properly, so it had to leave. And basically, you can't bring nuclear vessels into Brisbane. So, and I mentioned this on in the trenches with Kaz's video the other day, and we were talking about, could China attack Australia? And I said, I mentioned that a first strike on Australia could quite easily be those huge Chinese fishing fleets armed with drones and literally thousands of kilometres of long lines. And they could really tangle things up. He laughed, thinking that, you know, I was using a bit of pun there. No pun intended, but actually, I was being literal. If we have harbours like Darwin Harbour, Brisbane river systems, Sydney Harbour, whatever it is, if we have Chinese, could be anybody, but we'll just use Chinese fishing vessels, hundreds of them, if they're just releasing fishing line and their long line nets thousands of kilometres and let the tide take it into the river systems, all of those boats in there, that's going to tangle up and get everywhere. There's going to be very hard to clean up. But that'll get caught around the screws and the propellers, and that can chew up and just destroy all the seals. It can bend crankshafts. There's videos you can watch on YouTube where people have the winches from their four-wheel drives, where the hook of their winch gets caught on something, the car drives over the top of it, and I seen one where it got caught around the drive shaft, and while the car's just flying through the puddle, it gets caught on something, goes around the drive shaft, and the RPMs of the engine and the drive shaft tears the snout of the transfer case off and breaks the fucking diff. So it's amazing what rope can do when it's caught around propellers. So I was being really literally using rope as weapons against ships, you know, and people just don't see that. I try to look at the cheapest ways of fighting and what we can do when we're unarmed, you know. So, you know, slashing all the tyres of vehicles, you know, you can't get around. A car can't get around without its wheels. Like, there's so many easy ways to fight. Like, people have just got to open up their imagination, you know. So, and then for all these crime gangs, you see all these Middle Eastern crime gangs that own all these tobacconist shops and all that sort of stuff. If we had enough people and Aussies were really fair dinkum about fighting all, we're sick and tired of all the, burn all of them down. Burn all of those tobacconists down. We don't need tobacco. You don't need tobacco on vapes. Give it up. By gambling, smoking, drinking, and having all of these drugs that come from overseas, you're un-Australian, basically. Because you're just sending our money overseas and you're giving it to fucking immigrant fucking criminals. So shame on any of yous that vote Labor, Liberal, Greens, Nationals, smoke, drink, or fucking vape, or have fucking cocaine and all of that shit that comes from overseas. Fuck you cunts, you're weak as piss. Okay? I might even just leave it there for now. See you later.